today's world, we have this huge issue now in Europe, which has divided the world. You know, the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia's annexation of the Crimea before that, and so on. I mean, that's another war that we could have easily seen coming. And the fact that now Israel is, also beleaguered because you've got Hamas in Gaza, you've got the Houthis in the Red Sea, you've got Hezbollah in the southern Lebanon, which is launching an attack after attack on that area, and now an openly aggressive Iran, which is stoking all their proxies in the region. It's a virtual World War III. Did anyone project this? Where there would be these multiple sort of explosions across the world.
Well, this is something that has been already predicted by the security establishment in Israel more than a decade ago. And they're doing a lot of things. The most frightening thing that I'm aware of that the establishment was preparing itself for it was that Hezbollah will do what the Hamas has done in the south. If Hezbollah were to do what the Hamas did, that would be much, 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 much worse than what happened in October 7th. So the moment things have started in the south, all eyes went to the north so that it will not continue. It will not start even. And that's why, all the attention was more into the north than more into the south. And they took advantage of it because they knew that we are mostly, paying attention to the north.
Focused on the north, yes.
And they took advantage of it, which is something that is not supposed to happen. But we need to always remind ourselves that our enemies are preparing unusual moves that are not expected. Any nation that is constantly reminding itself that they not just might, they probably be surprised by something they are not aware of, they don't have any intel of. Any nation that will remind itself constantly about that that point will be much more safer than others. It's the same thing with India, the same thing with Europe, the same thing with even the US. And I can tell you that the US also is not preparing itself to those kind of surprises. And the worst surprise, no, they're not preparing itself. They are looking at China, they are looking at Russia, but they don't understand that something much graver might happen just nearby their borders. I'm not speaking about Mexico, I'm speaking about Venezuela. Venezuela is something that people are not giving it the right weight, and they don't understand how dangerous their moves might be to world order, to world trade. It's what we see with the Houthis can be also nearby the Panama Canal by the Venezuelans, and that will bring havoc worldwide. So even the US is not preparing itself to those kind of surprises.
That's a very interesting point. If I can go back to India, China, Dr. Passig, there's an aggressive, stealthy, technologically advanced armed China, which is seeking world dominance, and the US is ceding space. I mean, it withdrew from Afghanistan, which I think was a huge blunder militarily. And now in AI, when India has got a huge, long 3,200 kilometer border or 2,300 kilometer border, I'm not sure which, border with China. And China has got, it's got much more advanced army and equipment and than India does. I believe Israel has supplied us with drones, which and technology which keep us, a step ahead. But do you see that as a futurist, as one of the flashpoints of the future? Do you think there could be an eruption?
Yes, definitely. in order to, again, the signs are all over. The issue is to make some sense of those signs and give it a reliability. Now, it is clear that China is becoming much more aggressive all over the world, specifically in the northern part of India. And they are already, step by step moving forward, taking a piece here, a piece there, even, erasing some agreements that were signed a decade or a couple decades ago. So you can see that they are moving with a strategy. Now, most of the time, like it happened in Israel, you are trying to somehow appease your enemies, and nobody wants a war, nobody wants a
That's a
conflict.
very good point. That's true.
And at the beginning, everybody think, well, let's give them something, and then it will be nice. But that's not what happens in history. The same thing happened with Germany before World War II. They were saying, no, we would like just Czechoslovakia, and then we would like just Poland, and then you see yourself in a horrible world war that took 60 to 70 million people in a matter of 5 years. This is a pattern that repeats itself in history already for millennia. So appeasing at the initial stage of the conflict your enemies is the worst thing that a nation can do, because it brings more havoc in the future. Many times, it's a very old saying. We are not the first to say it. If you want peace, you better prepare for war. This is a very old saying that is proven again and again to be true. And unfortunately, diplomats nowadays are not really learning from history, and they are not learning from cycles in history and patterns in history, and really understanding how things are evolving in history. There was even something much difficult even to speak about nowadays. At the end of the 90s, there were some thinkers and geopoliticians and academics that said, that's it, there's no more wars worldwide, we have finished with that era. Fukuyama, for example, said the end of history, that's it, there's no more wars. What a mistake, what a timidity. That was horrible, to say. And
It's
many
a very
nations,
blinkered view.
yeah, many nations believe that this is it, and we better now step back and just engage in trade, engage in technology development. Unfortunately, this species did not end its stage in evolution, in which is constantly in conflict with other entities. And there are a lot of theories that try to understand where is it coming from, that that aggressiveness that we have been seeing with this species for millennia upon millennia. So this is something that we are also dealing. I've dealt with it also in one of my books, and I believe now that there is no one answer, but at least we have a theory that explains this phenomena. And this theory says that we are a very frightened species. When you are frightened, then you're becoming aggressive. And we have found that there are 6 variables. All of them are fears. And when they converge, there is no way to stop a conflict. It doesn't matter who's the leader. It doesn't matter what are the the situation worldwide, whatever. Since we are so fearful, we tend to be aggressive because we fear about the future of our offsprings. We fear about the future of food security and energy security and demographies, etc., etc. 6 variables. I'm not going to elaborate on them right now.
No, but
And
that's a
when
very
they,
interesting point. That is true. If we all function from fear,
yeah,
that is absolutely true. Because I mean, Russia's leader Vladimir Putin, I think, was afraid that the old Warsaw Pact countries would be gobbled up and become part of NATO, which would be a big threat to him. And
That's
I
right.
think the same thing applies to China. I don't know what China is afraid of, but I
Oh,
can't
there
quite
are
figure that out.
China is afraid of a lot of things. I might just give you an example. The problem in China
Please
is that they
do.
don't have enough water.
Yes, that is a threat. That's a threat,
So,
direct threat to India
you
too.
cannot, China, as big as it is, they cannot go to desalination. They need tons upon tons of energy that to do desalination. So they will have to take over some lands, some regions that have more
Yeah,
water, and this is the
that's true.
northern
Which is
part
why
of
Aksai Chin,
exactly.
their takeover of Aksai Chin is so critical because it's actually where the fountainhead of the Indus River and the Ganges River and so on and so forth. I mean, Aksai Chin and Tibet. So this is where the Ganga flows from.
Exactly.
So
So if you
that's very interesting.
the fears of your neighbor or of your enemy, you are able to foresee when there'll be a conflict. And it doesn't matter who's the leader, because if there are six variables that are in working into pushing entities into conflict, the more variables are converging, the more the probability of a conflict is higher. The less variables are converging, then there less probability that there will be a conflict. And this is how we can give some reliability of a conflict and even a timeline of a conflict.